You're listening to Plutocracy Now. This is Joey Hornbuckle.
Brian Baisden.
Bridgman Bolger.
Steen Kirby.
Scott Brown.
All right, guys. It's been a while since the last time we talked. Basically, all of 2014. So we got to catch up real fast, which is some of the biggest issues that happened in 2014. And I think when people look back, first thing they're going to look back on, this was the first year that America started selling weed legally in stores in California.
Yeah, because that was the most important thing that happened.
It was definitely. That was the one thing.
It was for me. Life-changing choices, man. No, I'm moving to Denver. Fuck it.
2014, in terms of political reform, didn't seem to me to be that great. Lawrence Lessig, I know he raised $10 million for May Day PAC, but very unsuccessful with the candidates he supported. So
maybe he learned that you can't beat money in politics with money in politics.
Right.
You really need people in the streets. This is what I've been saying for years, ever since Occupy. I'm saying this is the only route for real substantial change is people getting angry enough and near revolution and fucking forcing change, but being smart about it so it doesn't backfire and turn into, we've seen 1,000 failed revolutions.
I don't mind getting into the streets, but sometimes the street people aren't,
Yeah, no
don't
shit.
have it all
You also
together.
have to accept that, and you also, what's the alternative though?
Well,
the politicians, the corporations, the rich people, the billionaires are going to say about Elon Musk and his Mars colony. I want Brian to answer this. I want Brian to respond to this.
All I know is every time I go to a leftist political activism, let's get in the street, I'm always disappointed by the crowd in the terms of I don't think they really have it together to accomplish much.
Yeah, but exactly. And then so many people who should be in the streets use that as an excuse to not get in the streets and not make that shit better. I mean, people who complain, if you're not involved and you complain, then whatever. It's like people who don't vote and then complain about politics. You would talk shit to them, right?
That's what I see. I see a divide with the political class and the activist class. The political people think they're smarter than the activist people, and the activist people don't trust the political people. But how do we get anything done over here on the activist side without dealing with these people over here? So how do we bridge?
Or how do you
gap?
just make society better? You don't have to be like, how do you make the political goals or the activist goals? Like, how do you make society? Which isn't that why you guys got involved in politics? Isn't that why we all met each other?
Yeah, you're right. But you gotta these goals that you're
Bridgman's been a politician too long. He forgets.
If you're advocating for an issue, you have to have somebody in the state legislature, county commission, school board, wherever the issue you're lobbying for, or marching, or sit on the ground doing die-ins for. You have to have somebody in the political class at your ear and able to push some form of legislation, or else there's no point of doing the activism. If Martin Luther King died and did all those marches, but there was no Voting Rights Act, that would have been pointless. But that was the clear definition between Martin Luther King and someone like a Malcolm X. Although people may say that Malcolm X was too militant and Martin Luther King was too docile, Malcolm X never got any one piece of legislation passed. So you have to understand, you have to operate within the confines of the political structure to get any achievable social change.
And I agree. I mean, any major social change has come from having allies in the political system. Right. For example, even going back to something like the abolition amendment, plenty of people can share a view and agree, but it took...
but you're still, none of you are disagreeing. I totally agree with all that, but there's no, that's not the you were talking about being in the streets at all. You're like, why be in the streets? I'm saying it's important. We need smart people like you.
Absolutely.
And all of you motherfuckers to be in the streets more. So the shit's not so dumb in the streets. Because
you're
crazy, stupid. All the criticisms you have, I have too. You've heard them. So don't tell me. I'm there. I see it first person. I deal with it more than you. So don't tell me.
You're in the streets, and I'm in the streets as well. And it is our job as those who have chosen to be active in the streets to educate those people in the streets. But it's so hard. Like, I'm sure, given your circle in the Occupy movement, given my in the black militant, I guess, equality rights.
Damn.
Oh, man. We got it on tape.
I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yes.
So what I'm saying, we both of these situations, we find ourselves advocating to people who have a distrust of government. And it's like, for instance, like when the day Occupy Atlanta started, John Lewis came and was shunned. I mean, it should have never been that, but that was a direct reflection of the activist class not trusting the political class.
But here's what I don't understand, Scott. If we look at the actual successful things that have been done in the last 5 years, like gay marriage legalization or weed legalization, that didn't require people going out and doing near revolutionary stuff.
But those
and
are
burning
social
down
things, and you got to look at.
buildings
Look,
Yeah, those
look,
are
hold on,
small.
hold on.
It
Let me
didn't require
respond
that.
to
Like,
this.
you look
I
at
already
any
know
of
where
these
you're going.
these great
I already
changes.
got a response. Because
So
look,
what-
what's the name of our show? Plutocracy Now.
Plutocracy Now, yeah.
Plutocracy Now. Why? Because plutocracy is the main political dynamic in our country and in the world today.
And it
you know
creates
what
the
plutocracy
most
doesn't care
wealth
about? Plutocracy
for
cares about
everyone.
profits. You know what plutocracy doesn't care about? Plutocracy doesn't care about, you know, what you do with your cock in your bedroom. Plutocracy doesn't care about if you're smoking something, as long as they get their cut. They want their money. Those are social issues. That's why we will make progress on social issues. And all I'm hoping is that doesn't placate people so much. They stop
Exactly.
caring about the really important stuff.
But
Yeah,
even
it's
on
about-
issues that aren't social issues, if you're going to look at foreign policy, if you're going to look at healthcare
Well,
reform,
we're
financial
about to do
systems,
that. We're
It's
about
about-
to do that. We're
yeah.
about
I
to
just-
do that.
It's
the
about-
idea that you have to have near revolution in order to make those
But
things
the
happen.
the thing is, it's about keeping people docile. If you look at Goldman Sachs supports gay marriage, they've spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars supporting gay marriage organizations.
Yeah,
Is
eliminate
Goldman
this a little bit.
Sachs a morally good company? Yes or no?
I would say no.
I would
Exactly.
say 70-30.
So
No.
Yeah,
it
that's
is
fine,
about
70-30.
keeping people docile. We keep people distracted, whether they're for or against guns, abortion, gay marriage, drugs, sexual related things, whatever it may be.
So you're saying those things aren't because people just have just
people have
disagreements
been
with
I
each
think
other.
that it
those
takes
things.
a
You're saying that's
groundswell
like
of
an
support, but
intentional- this has
let's
intentionally been
remember,
constructed
let's
to keep
remember
people
before the 1920s and anti-Chinese laws, drugs were legal in this country. They used to sell cocaine in a pharmaceutical store
Meth,
to
too.
small
Well,
children.
let's bring it back to 2014. But all right, so talking about the streets, though. What do you guys think about the success of all the police brutality, the Mike Brown, the Ferguson, the Eric Garner protests?
I would ask you what
do
success,
you
'cause
think?
there have not
that's
been
what, well,
any
that's what I was.
success.
That's what I was throwing
There
out there.
has
No,
There has
but
not
there
been
has
any
been
success.
a success because
Where?
public awareness has been brought to these issues in a way they weren't being brought before.
Public. Okay, first and foremost,
That's the first
does
step.
count for something.
black
Well,
people have been knowing about this problem
Yeah.
for a long time.
You have to figure out your
I mean-
first step. So now we have our first step, and people are treating
But
this
it
as
seems
a
like a lot of the
serious
people
issue
who
that it
didn't
is.
know about it now just still pretend like they don't know about
I
it.
agree.
If they're
And-
confronted with it, they still just
There's
deny
a
it,
reason
you know?
why. He had a piece of marijuana in his system.
Yeah,
oh,
or
that
he
justifies
robbed- he robbed
that-
the grocery
he
store
dropped-
15 minutes earlier,
Like with the
like-
Mike Brown situation. Okay, I've never heard anybody shoplifting being referred to as a robbery ever in my life, and you hear that placated so many times. Cause okay, if you say he was shoplifting and the police shot him, that sounds like a bit.
Sounds like a white girl.
That sounds like an abuse of police force. But when you say he was robbing a store, he was robbing a liquor store. Hey, that's a very familiar stereotype that's placed placed on the black man.
Wasn't he particularly aggressive with the shop owner? It wasn't just let me sneak something in the pocket and walk out, right?
He never.
It was like he was
and
robbing
Some
a bank.
particularly
Yeah.
aggressive people who don't just get shot down by cops.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I mean,
Who
there
also
was some.
didn't, like, according to their own police department, didn't know that he was a suspect at the time.
And
It had nothing to do
besides
with
that,
that.
and then aside from all of that, the initial on the scene response official story was, they were in the middle of the street, that's why we stopped them. Then they came up with this story after the fact to meet public opinion so they could justify everything they
Yeah,
were
damage
already going to
control.
do because black people knew there wasn't going to be an indictment.
But so was there success
You know,
in Ferguson? Why was there no success in Ferguson?
There was no success in Ferguson because, first and foremost, the people who make up Ferguson, I went to Ferguson, I did some trainings up there,
shit.
and I talked to, Maria Chappelle Nadal, the lady, the state senator who said, fuck Governor Nixon. I met her, and I talked to her about it, and she was saying that there is such a void. There's like the black voices up there are so voiceless. They don't trust government. They don't want to participate in it, so they don't register to vote. And because of this, you don't register to vote. You're not on the jury. You're not represented accordingly to. You're letting somebody else govern you, and that's what happened. I mean, that's the fault of the community, yes, but at the same time, that's the fault of the public education for not educating people of civics anymore. I mean,
But then
that's
who do you blame
mandatory.
for that? Because I mean,
And here's something I want to throw in too, is that a lot of people have made this into a black and white issue or a minority community versus white community issue and white police. And that has a lot to do with it, but I also think it's also an age discrimination thing. Because
Right.
if you ever see in the news all these people, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, these other people, a lot of times they are young men. And it seems to me that there is a reaction in the media and in society and by the police and others against young men that views them as violent, dangerous. When you saw in Wilson's interview, he talked about how Brown was menacing and a big
Look
man.
like a demon.
Yeah.
Look like
turn
the
into a
Hulk.
demon.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, there is just a behavior in this country that says that young people are not responsible and they need to be kept in line. And I think there is a war on youth in this country, in addition to a war on these poor and underprivileged communities.
Yeah, I
But
would've-
here's my question, because people are talking about criminal justice reform now a lot more since Ferguson happened. Is plutocracy going to be on the side of people that want to reform the criminal justice system, or do they have
Well,
a
it
reason to be
depends.
against
Interesting
it?
It
thing.
depends
Yeah,
on what
Because,
kind
guys
because
hear
a lot
about
of
the
a lot
Cokes?
of prisons are privately owned, so they probably wouldn't be down for
They
that.
would not.
No, but there's also. Have you guys heard? This is. I would say they mostly fall on that side. But the Koch brothers. This is just funny. So I think it was Charles Koch was quoted as saying, like, talking about the criminal justice system and how it was too harsh and too punitive. After some Coke affiliated, some Coke companies like had almost some of their people almost go to jail over some chemical spills.
That's
So
and they're
this
working
is
with
a-
Rand
I
Paul
use
on
that
that.
as an example of.
But wait, were they
why-
dealing with the police or the EPA?
Or the EPA probably, yeah.
They're
That
they're
sounds like- that
talking
sounds a little
about
different to
criminal
me.
I think
things.
more
Right now,
libertarian,
the way
but-
things are funneled in this country now, the plutocratic class, they funnel a certain portion of impoverished people into the prison industrial complex because they can make money off of that.
I agree. And there was a
It starts at the elementary school level. They kids who go into these underperforming schools, and by the time of third grade, if they're not at a certain reading level, the prison companies base this data on how to build the prisons 20 years onward.
But
Because they say this
All right,
segment of
we
children
gotta
know
wrap
how
this
to
up
read,
because
you
we're
know.
about to be out of time.
I
But-
would like to say two things to wrap this up.
You're about to
Ridgemont
get cut
Bulger, he
off.
did step up and try to get himself into political
Oh, no,
office
you're
to
not.
kind of be an inside person.
Nah,
He ran
man, I
for
got
school
12 minutes.
board
What are you talking about?
unsuccessfully,
It's 1:15.
unfortunately, but he put himself out there.
Yeah, there's a
And-
lot of plutocracy involved, money in politics, and
And also in 2014, because we had the financial crisis, that's one of the biggest things that's kind of happened in our lives in the United States or in the world. And there's been a lot of reform efforts or anti-reform efforts trying to weaken the Dodd-Frank bill, which I don't think was strong enough to begin with. And so that outlook
Get ready
doesn't
for,
look too promising
you
for
know.
me.
Yeah, 2015
Global
is
financial
probably gonna be
crisis, too.
worse.
And
Yeah.
there was a judge in Pennsylvania he went to jail relatively recently, it's probably in the past 2 years, he was in a contract with private prison companies to send juveniles to
Chivarella.
prison. Yeah, he was
Chivarella
selling.
was his
Yeah,
name.
he was selling kids to prison.
I worked with a dude whose lawyer was involved with that. But all right, we got to wrap it up right now. But actually, just to bring it back to the Ferguson, the Mike Brown, the police brutality stuff. Like, I was in the streets for some of the shut it down stuff. But what I wanted to say, what I think it comes down to, and how plutocracy relates to it. The people have no control over our government. It's not accountable. That's what it all comes back to, accountability. The police are not accountable. Whether it's white, whether it's homeless, whether it's young, whether it's black, Hispanic, all this. You see, of course it's disproportionate in some communities than others, but it's as unaccountable, and it's randomly accountable,
that's-
but predominantly unaccountable.
I'm not
because
sure.
our government is in most ways unaccountable to us. Even
That's the thing. I mean, one thing that I saw a good point on Twitter that somebody made, that we should look at the police and the military and these individuals that are given the special privilege of having guns all the time and being able to do certain things like arrest people that normal citizens can't. And we should hold them to a higher standard because they do have more privileges than the rest of us. I cannot go into a store and arrest somebody.
What's the Superman quote?
Or how about-
Spider-Man, yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man, yeah.
So,
Spider-Man
so
quote,
instead of saying we respect the police and
Joey,
support them no
check
matter
this
what,
out.
we should be holding
Right now.
them and any other public
Plutocracy
servants
Now.
All right,
to a higher
we got to wrap
standard.
this up. It's been a good 2014 or a bad 2014, but now it's 2015, so wrapping it up.